Welcome. So it is Friday and it is story time. So every Friday we do a fun story, and the whole idea is what can we learn from this particular story? That's basically the whole point of story time is what can we learn from it? And sometimes there is a funny message. Sometimes there is a learning lesson. Sometimes it's my own goof up. Sometimes I'm laughing at somebody else. And just because I'm laughing at somebody else doesn't really mean that I haven't done these goof ups. And whenever I share story times, whenever I share frustrations, it's because I happen to be extremely passionate about real estate. I happen to believe that real estate done well can basically make you a multimillionaire. Real estate done poorly can can make you go bankrupt. And I believe that real estate is basically like fire. You can cook a great steak with it, or you can burn a house down. And today, I came up with a great idea, and it's called knowing your numbers. Actually, I'm stealing Gina's thunder. We're talking about okay, what fun things can we talk about as we talk about story time? Yet, what are the lessons and to be learned from these types of things? So today it's all about knowing your numbers, and there are three different properties, three different situations, and sometimes these are situations that happen in mastery. Sometimes these are situations that I have goofed up, and you know, I share that because by sharing those, what you understand is sometimes we all know things, but yet do we practice them? Right? Because sometimes we're all delusional about things. And so this happens to everybody. But I thought I would share these three stories kind of today, and they're all based on understanding and knowing your numbers. And so they relate to either flips, wholesales, rentals, that kind of thing. And so the first one, I'll start with a property that happens to be a property in Barrington, and this is a property which I bought, and this is one of those things that I got away with this particular property not because I was so smart. I only reason I got away with it is because the property was bought at a number that the number was right. Right now, there have been properties I have bought which I didn't make any money on, right? I mean, there are properties I've bought where I lost a little bit of money. Fortunately, I'm very, very, very blessed that I've lost a lot of money in any property, but certainly I have lost money on things. I mean, I've made investments. Some of you guys know we built a huge cigar lounge in South Suburbs on 159th Street. It used to be a Coldwell Banker building. We bought the entire building and the 40,000 taxes a year with it. And I like to smoke cigars sometimes, and I built a lounge over there. And both Rahul and I, we have close to, I think, $600,000 cash out of pocket invested in there, and then we have a loan on top of that. And literally, in that particular business, when we sell that business, we're probably going to lose a couple $100,000, right? And I can, if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying about it. But at least, fortunately, I can laugh about that today, not because I'm proud of it, but I kind of put my hand into a business that I had no business being in, right? I thought this is going to be another cash flow business that I don't have to be there, and it'll just make money. It's cool. It's a nice lounge. You have beautiful chairs. I mean, we literally spent close to $450,000, another 100,000 in inventory, and I was being stolen blind from because I did not want to be there running the business day to day. And so that was one of my examples of goof up, right? Fortunately, in life, if you've made a lot of good decisions, once in a while, you're going to make a bad decision, right? Probably probably the best and most successful investor in the world are two guys by the name of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, right? The founders of Berkshire Hathaway, right? Even those guys, Berkshire Hathaway itself, the company that is probably one of the most well-known investors in history, right, by far. And these guys are in their 80s or 90s today. I think actually Charlie Munger is close to 95 or 100, somewhere over there. And yet they have made mistakes. So, I'm a mere chump change in front of them. But so this was a property in Barrington that I bought, and I bought this property as from a mailing that I had done. And this is about a year and a half ago. I bought this property, and literally it was bought for $90,000. Now, middle of Barrington, $90,000, and this is kind of towards the tail end of the pandemic. Is when this property sometime was bought. And I thought I got a phenomenal deal. I mean, I really, really, at the time when I bought it, I thought it was a phenomenal deal. And it was a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom, basement, and upstairs. And it's kind of a hillside ranch, which is, the back of the ranch, the hill kind of goes this way. So what happens is you have a walkout basement over there. And the whole property sits on cinder blocks. And the cinder blocks, over time, because of water. So what happens is, a lot of times people think that, that whenever foundations move, 99.9% times in Illinois, right, it's not settlement. This is in Illinois. In different states, that may be the issue, but generally it is not settlement. Generally, most of foundation problems are caused because of water. Right. What happens is water basically seeps if you don't have proper gutters, and the gutters don't channel water away from the house. Over the years, the water will get in so if this is the foundation, it'll go in next to the foundation. It freezes over there. When it freezes, what happens is it pushes against. What happens when water freezes? It expands. And so so basically the frozen water, which is ice, that pushes against the foundation. And so that pressure of the soil and the frozen water, what it does is it puts a squeeze. So whenever you have, especially a cinder block foundation, a cinder block has strength in terms of vertically, because if you put weight on it, it has strength. But laterally, the cinder blocks, the way they used to be done, they are hollow. Right? Nowadays, if you look at Florida, in Florida, we build with cinder blocks, right? All the new construction is all cinder block walls. They don't use wood because of termites in that area. Especially the first floor will always be cinder block. Second floor, they'll use stick built like Illinois. But first floor, they'll always use cinder block. Plus, it's hurricane proof. But with the cinder blocks, what they do is every 18 inches, the cinder block, they put a rebar in there. The rebar is connected to your foundation, and then you pour concrete, right? Same things over the windowsills. You have kind of a LVL beam, which is a concrete beam, and then you have a rebar sitting on top of it, and you put concrete. And that's what gives you basically not the vertical, but the lateral strength. But what happens in Illinois is you have a hollow block, so there's no structural strength in terms of moving sideways. So what happens is, whenever water and soil pushes against the cinder block, it's going to start cracking, which a lot of people have seen that. Generally, that is not that difficult to fix, generally. So this property I buy, upstairs rehab is what it is. It's a big rehab. The roof was okay, fortunately. Roof was okay, and it wasn't a big expense, but the roof was still okay. But from windows to siding to everything in the house need to be redone. New plumbing, new electrical, and Barrington is not an easy town to put permits. They want everything done by the book, right? This is just how it is. You're not getting away with cutting corners. And the guy comes in, gives me a quote, $22,000 for the cinder block, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great, no problem, right? Then he's like, man, it's Barrington, it's downtown Barrington, right? And it's kind of tucked away house. And he's like, should I pull a permit? And and I'm like, dude, it's Barrington, just pull a permit, make sure you do it by the book. And this is one of those things. I went to do things right. I knew I was going to have to pull a permit for upstairs. But could I have done it? Now, this was winter when I got the house, so everything was frozen solid outside. So at that time, he could have technically taken out all the support of the house, taken out all the block inside, all the soil and everything is frozen. He could have basically just rebuilt all the 3 walls, because there were almost 2.5, 3 walls that were messed up. The wall in the back, because there was a walkout basement, that was perfectly fine. And so here I am. I'm supposed to be a Mr. Experienced investor, and sometimes it goes to show you. So I go, and he goes pull a permit. So now what Barrington says is, imagine this is a house. It's barely an 800 square foot house, right? So it's not a very big house, Cape Cod. So they're like, well, for OSHA regulations, now what you have to do is all three sides, you have to basically go 10 or 15 feet away from the house, and then you have to cut an angle of 45 degrees. You have to dig out that much dirt, right, all across. So now you need a big backhoe. Now you need a chain link fence all the way around, because that becomes a hazard in case somebody falls in. Why you would go over there and how you stumble into it, God knows. But that's just how, for safety reasons, that's what's got to be done. So it's got to be done. And then it's got to be all backhoed out. The house has got to be supported, right? And then all of it's got to be built back, right? Now, obviously, you need engineering drawings. So that was another $4,000, $5,000. And the estimate now goes from $22,000. Watch this, $22,000 to $60,000. $60,000, right? And I'm like, oh my God, but what do you do, right? I bought the house. Now, here's the funny part, which I have to laugh at myself. This particular house, Boyan from Mastery, he's like, man, Andrew, I'll take it off your hands, right? Name the price and I will buy it, right? And so basically I could have made 40, 50,000 bucks just like that, like selling it to Boyan, and Boyan would have had to worry about it. Me, I'm like, no, man, it's Barrington. It's hard to find houses, blah, blah. I'm just going to keep it, and I could have made 40, 50,000 bucks, and I don't wholesale the property. I keep the property. And so now I'm getting hit with about 60,000 bucks, right? And I'm laughing at it, but I'm not, right? There's a lesson here. Sometimes you can do, I had done my homework. I had gotten the estimates. I'd done everything correctly. One place I missed, that when he had given me the quote, right? I'm like, oh, I've done a bunch of houses like this, no big deal, right? We've done a bunch of Lansing here, there, everywhere else. And we just took out the thing, put it back up, and it's done. But now once the village gets involved with it, and they start opening up all these cans of worms, right? It becomes a big issue. And the foundation was so bad that I could not just ignore it. It was pretty bad, right? So I wanted to get it fixed, and I wanted to get it fixed correctly, because I would need to get it fixed if I wanted to flip it, for sure. I couldn't hide it. Once I know that it's messed up, that would be totally, obviously, not only unethical, it would end up being a lawsuit, obviously. So I don't want to do something unethical, neither do I want to get into a lawsuit when I know something is wrong. So I had to fix it right. There was no getting away from it. If I want to keep it as a rental, right, still, it's going to be an issue, because the village is going to come in there and it's going to be an issue. So ended up spending 60,000 bucks on that. On top of that, the crews that I have, they were so busy, so I give it to somebody from Mastery, and they did the rehab. By the time that was done, that ended up being another 100,000, right? So on a property, I had thought I would get away with 60, 70,000 bucks. I personally missed the mark on that particular property by almost 55, 60,000 bucks. Only one saving grace in that property. And that was that I had bought the particular property so incredibly cheap. That was the only saving grace, right? Could I, if the owner had asked me to pay 120, would I have paid for it? Yes. If they had asked me 130, would I have paid for it? Yes. If they asked me 140, I would have probably even paid 140 for that house. Why? Because of the location. And this kind of sometimes goes to show you, the reason I'm saying this is that this is not my first go around at this, obviously. We've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of houses, right? And I teach this, I do this, but yet sometimes we all will make a mistake, or we all will get ourselves into a situation that can go bad. Now, if this property was anybody else, a bunch of other people in Mastery said, hey, Andrew, we'll buy the property from you, for sure. I was not going to sell it to them, for sure, right? Because it was just a big, big, big rehab, and I knew it would go wrong. And they'd be like, oh, Andrew Holmes sold me a property, and now I'm in trouble, and I'm from Mastery, right? I don't want that on my conscience at all. And so I knew I wasn't going to sell it to them. Boyan is somebody different. He's very experienced, has done a ton of properties, has dealt with these kind of issues. So Boyan would be somebody different. But yet, what it goes to show you is sometimes now the one thing I did not do before I went to the project is I was so overconfident, and this is sometimes happens to all of us. We're so overconfident sometimes. Oh yeah, and no big deal, right? I met the guy at the property. I didn't even go in. I had seen the property once before, but I didn't even go in. I'm like, yeah, he gives me an estimate. It generally is right. I'm going to rely on it, and I move forward, right? And so I'm not sure I can blame the village. The village was just doing what was required, right? At the end of the day, whose fault is it? It's my fault, right? It's nobody else's fault. It's my fault, 100%. I can blame whoever I want. So think about it: 90,000 for purchase, another almost 160,000 in that property. So I'm in that deal somewhere around 260. Now, on top of that, you have a year's worth of carrying cost, right? A year worth of carrying cost on that property. So now, if you look at real numbers, I'm in a property that is now a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and my cost of ownership is 280, if not 290. I mean, it's a stupid number to even look at. And honestly, at that time, now obviously the market's gone crazy, so the property may be worth more, but at the time, the property is not worth more than 350, I don't think, realistically, right? And so if I had sold that property barely after you take commissions, you take selling expense, whatever, I would have literally made what, 20,000, 25,000? Now, some people may look at it, they're like, Andrew, you're still making 20, 25,000. I'm not sure what you're complaining about. What I'm complaining about is this, that I'm not sure the property was the problem. The problem was my overconfidence that, oh, yeah, I can handle it, right? And it's not that I couldn't handle it, but what was the point? I bought a property where barely, I'm in the deal for 280, 290, and I'm not going to make a whole lot of money. What am I doing this for? Is this a game? Is this a joke? If you were going to live on doing a flip, you certainly could not live on a stupid flip like that where you're going to make 25 to 30,000 bucks. That just wouldn't be enough. Now, somebody might say, but Andrew, I do lots of other flips. I understand. But my point is, you can't afford to have that much money tied up in a property. And the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes when you make a mistake, you have to admit it and go, you know something? Not going to do that again, right? I learned my lesson, and it happens from time to time. It's different things that will happen. A lot of times what people will do is they'll do something like that, and then, oh, yeah, that doesn't happen. I still killed it, man. I made 30,000 bucks. No, I didn't kill anything, right? I would have gotten killed in terms of financially, not that I lost money, but what I'm saying is that was the exercise in stupidity, right? Just because you can get away with something doesn't mean you should do it. Another way of saying it is just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, right? And we lose money on properties that we buy, not the ones we walk away from, or not the ones that we don't get, right? So a lot of times we go, oh yeah, I should have bought that property. I should. Well, guess what? You didn't. Didn't matter, right? And it's important that whenever we're buying real estate, sometimes our overexuberance. I was excited to find a property, middle of Barrington. I'm like, I'm never selling this property. I'm going to keep it forever as a rental property because it's hard to find those types of properties, so on and so forth. I got it at such an incredible price. And guess what? That property should have been a money maker, but I should have known that ahead of time. Now, had I done proper homework that, hey, we're going to need to pull permits, right? We're going to basically try to get away with the wink, wink, and nod, nod. And, now the property's done. And now I'm renting it out as a 3-4 month rental at a time. So it's kind of a midterm rental. You can't do Airbnbs in Barrington. They absolutely will not allow it, period, right? They just don't allow it. So the question becomes is, for me, was that my goof up? Was that my mistake? When I look back at it, I'm like, certainly I did not do my homework as thoroughly as I should have. I should have actually gotten the property under contract and closed on the property and just wholesaled the property. Now, when I wholesaled it, it was evident to everybody that the problems that were there were there. Why? Because if I think about the net profit, actually, I would have made more net profit right away from that wholesale because everybody else would have gotten caught in the same excitement that I did, which was, oh my God, it's such a good location that I'm buying it because of location and ignored some other things. Clearly, some people would have gotten scared, but there were people who have bought it. If Boyan had gotten into it, I think he would have run into similar problems because I couldn't find my way around it, right? So he would have probably run the same problems. Now, today, it's a pretty profitable deal because I'm able to get tenants in there for 3 to 4 months at a time. So you're getting a midterm type of a rental, but I had the ability to be able to carry the property. But just because I had the ability to carry it, think about it, if this was my first, second, third, fourth, fifth property, I would have gotten myself in a lot of financial trouble and a lot of hot water. The only reason I got away with it, right? And it'll end up being a great deal in the long run. Why? Because time will have passed. If I've rented the property 5, 6, 10, 12 years, does it really matter? No, it doesn't. But guess what? If I did not have enough money at the time, it would have mattered. So it's important to understand. Another thing happened. I had a lender on that property, and I could have paid for the property, but I had a lender on the property, hard money lender. And after 8 months, the term of the loan ran out. And that particular company, they were being sold to another company, so they were not too eager in terms of re-upping the loan, right? So I had to basically just buy them out. So I just basically paid off the mortgage. Fortunately, I was in a position to do that it wasn't a big deal. I just paid off the mortgage. But if I had not been in that position, think about what happens, right? And I share my own lesson because sometimes you can know it all. You may have done it 1,000 times, but guess what? Sometimes you're going to put yourself in a situation where you think everything should work and it doesn't as it's supposed to, right? Now, today, it's a pretty sweet deal because even after my principal, interest, taxes, insurance, every single month, that property nets out close to $2,000, right? Sometimes 1,800, sometimes 2,100, but it's ballpark somewhere over there. So it seems like a great deal. But if you honestly ask me, right, is that a good deal? As far as I'm concerned, that is not a good deal because that property would have put a lot of people under. So I hope that lesson makes some sense. So now let's move on to number 2. So story number 2 is somebody, I'm not going to mention who, so somebody is buying a property, and I tried to tell this person, please, I would not buy this property. But Andrew, I'm going to make money. I'm like, I understand. My suggestion to this person was, I'm like, listen, do I think you're going to lose money? No, I don't think you're going to lose money, right? But the house is a 2-bedroom property. The particular town that you're buying in, they're very, very, very tough on their inspections. The floor in the house is sagging. The layout downstairs is really kind of choppy. And upstairs, there's only a couple of bedrooms. There is no way on God's green earth, no way on God's green earth, you're going to make this a 3-bedroom. So you can't really do any value add in the property, right? Can you make it nice? Yes, I agree you can make it nice. The problem is this, right? This property that when somebody was wholesaling this particular property, they were wholesaling this property somewhere around $90,000. At $90,000 for a wholesale, it made sense. But then there is another wholesaler involved in the middle, right? They're making some money. Then there's another wholesaler involved. And then there's somebody else that's buying the property. So by the time the property is getting to this person, right? So 1, 2, 3, and the 4th person, so it's like a daisy chain sort of a wholesale. Now, does it matter to me that it's a daisy chain wholesale? No. But my job is to tell the person from mastery, hey man, listen, I know you're excited about it, but this property is not a good property for you. But Andrew, am I going to lose money? No, you're not going to lose money, but you're probably not going to make that much money, right? Yeah, but I still want to do it. Like, I understand. I want to grow taller, right? When you're as short as I am, you want to grow taller. Height matters. But I'm like, listen, it's just a fact of life is that's probably not going to happen at my age at this point, right? All I can do is maybe wear an elevator shoe, right? I don't, but I'm just saying. So, but there's not a lot of hope for this property because the back end numbers in this particular property are just not there. So doesn't matter how many rehabs this person has done before, doesn't matter their skill set, right? The fact of the matter is that you're not going to be able to sell the property high enough, and because of the problems that are there, that you're not going to be able to make money. Now, if you just want to do something for the sake of doing it, or because it's just your money's burning a hole in your pocket, and that's why you want to force a property to happen, that's fine, right? I can't stop you from it. All my job is to tell you, hey, man, this is a property that we said no to multiple times to a bunch of people, not at this price. If you're buying the property 20,000 or so cheaper, maybe you're going to make a little bit more money. But otherwise, you're barely going to walk away with, I think, no more than 20,000 bucks. Now, I hope they walk away with more, but I think they're going to go through heck and back trying to put the property in the right condition because the previous homeowner had never pulled a permit, had done the work in a way which was very, very, very shabby, very, very shabby. And so it's going to create a lot of problems for this particular person on the back end. My personal opinion, absolutely do not buy the property at this point. Even if you have put up some earnest money, lose the earnest money, right? Because it is not worth their time to put the next 6-7 months of their time, effort, energy, and go do the property to make barely 20,000 bucks, if that's what it is. Now, that's my opinion, and they don't have to listen. And they've decided, no, they're heck bent on making this deal happen, which is God bless. But to me, the numbers are not there. What they're doing is they're forcing the property to happen. And there's a principle in real estate that just because you got into real estate today, or just because you want to do a deal, if the market doesn't present a deal to you, you can't take a donkey. Right? You can't take a donkey. Doesn't matter how good a trainer you've had. Doesn't matter how much good feed you've given him. Doesn't matter how perfect the conditions are. You cannot take a donkey to the Kentucky Derby and expect the donkey to win. And you can't beat the donkey at the end of it and go, man, how come you didn't win? It's a donkey. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it, right? It's meant to basically carry loads. It is not a thoroughbred horse to run in the Kentucky Derby, right? Because for a Kentucky Derby, you need a horse. And sometimes we all do this. We will find a donkey, and we're so convinced that we're so good that we're going to convert it into a horse. I've done it. I've certainly done it where I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to put so much effort. I'm going to put in hard work, and I'm going to make it happen because I'm not the type of person that quits. And sometimes what we fail to look at it is, hey man, you went to the market looking for a horse. You came home with a donkey. Rather than now putting all this extra work into making it a horse, which you're not going to, doesn't matter what you do with it. But instead of getting rid of the donkey, what we do is we go ahead and feed it and give it the best coaching and the best training and the best of everything. And then when it goes and bombs the Kentucky Derby, then we blame the market. Then we blame, oh my God, it's the seller's fault that they sold the property too high. No, it's nobody's fault. At the end of the day, you chose to buy the property. Just like I chose to buy the Barrington property, I chose not to wholesale it. I can't blame an outside factor. Doesn't matter. I can get mad at the village all I want. That, hey man, my budget was 20. If you had just let me do it my way, then it would have been pretty good, but you didn't. But this is just how it is a lot of times in real estate. A third story that I feel had a happy ending, even though this particular person lost a little bit of money, but I feel they had a very, very, very good ending. Is this is an experience I've shared about Mr. Billman, right? Our good friend, Mr. Frank Billman from Mastery, comes to Mastery. This is about 5, 6 years ago, and he had a property on Devon, a bungalow, and the bungalow, beautiful, typical Chicago bungalow. You know, the octagonal bungalows that we have, the nice windows, the whole 9 yards. And he's like, man, I'm going to do a flip. And I'm like, well, where's the property? He's like, oh, it's by Devon, Little India, right? And I'm like, okay, so it's a big project. And we all look at it. We're like, the hell are you going to do with this, right? He's like, man, I'm going to do a flip. I'm like, why? He's like, well, I'm going to make money, Andrew. I'm like, how? He had bought the property for $215. A builder had bought the property before him for $165, dumped it on Frank, smart guy, dumped it on Frank, made a quick $40,000, and he was out of it. Frank buys it, and he thinks he's going to put 70 into it, and he's going to make another 100 on the back end. I'm like, listen, man, the property that you think you're going to get done for 70, we could not get it done even with our crews in-house for less than 100, if not 120. We would never touch the property. And one thing I have to really, really give kudos to Frank, right? As much as I love to pick on Frank, not only is he a good friend, he's a great story out of Mastery in terms of how many properties he owns today, but yet, even with his big head, he had made a mistake. We all go there and we're all going like, oh my God, this is a crazy house, right? And not that it couldn't be done, but again, the question is not, can you do something? The question is, should you be doing it? And some things you just should not be doing. And so I tell him, I'm like, listen, man, go ahead and put the property back on the market. Just put it under my MLS ID and let's just dump it. He's like, you think so? I'm like, I don't think so. I know so. We stick the property on the market for MLS for $250, right? He had already ordered the windows because he was going to start the work. He's like, what do I do with the windows? I'm like, just leave them in there. I mean, what are you going to do? And an agent calls me. The agent's like, man, why is your client selling the property? There's windows in there. My client is nuts. Yeah, he's just nuts. He bought too many properties. He's just selling it, right? And I mean, I don't lie. I think the client's nuts, right? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to kill it on the property, man. Your client is stupid, right? I'm going to make so much money. I'm like, oh, man, God bless. I wish you nothing but the best, right? And this real estate agent buys the property. And this was my bet to everybody at the 3-day. I'm like, this property is going to end badly. 1 3-day goes by, property doesn't sell. 2 3 days goes by, property still not on the market. 3 3 days goes by, property still not on the market. By the 4th 3 days, so now this is a year and a half later, the property is put on the market for $530. Comes down to $485. Comes down to $450. Comes down to $425. Sells somewhere around, I don't know what it was. The agent took a $47,000 loss in that particular property. He took the loss not because the property was bad. He took the loss because he had simply paid too much. The builder at 169 felt he could not make enough of a profit if he did the rehab. So what does he do? He's smart about it. He dumps the property for $215, makes $30,000-$40,000, boom, walks away from the property, which was the best thing he could have done. Frank buys it, and he's like, oh my God, I'm going to do this rehab. And fortunately, literally fortunately, he came to the 3-day. It was a part of Platinum Mastery, and we all go there because we want to go to a property, not just a beautiful property, which is in great shape. That doesn't teach you anything, but something where there's problems, something where there's a learning lesson. And this property, fortunately, we caught it just before he had started the rehab. Literally, he had taken a foot forward. Sometimes in life, when you take a foot forward, you don't realize because it's dark outside, which is called inexperience, right? And you don't realize that you're heading straight for a ditch. Somebody else that experience kind of pulls you back and says, hey, listen, there's a mine over there. You cannot put your foot. And they're like, man, I already put my foot. I'm like, hold on, we're going to gradually take it off. Maybe you'll lose your toe, right? But we don't want you to die there. We don't want you to be your last deal. On that particular property, Frank lost, even though he sold the property for, I think it was 230 or something like that, because he had spent some money on the windows. By the time other agent was paid and all that kind of stuff, he still lost 4 or 5,000 bucks. But guess what? Today he has 35, 40 doors, whatever he has today, rentals that he owns. Yet if he had gone and lost money on that first property, he would have never done anything else. What my point is this: just because you can do something in life or in real estate doesn't mean it's a good idea for you to do it, right? And a lot of times, nobody wants to lose money, right? Obviously, nobody wants to lose money. All of us, when we start out because we think that we want to make money, and what we're doing, because we're going to work hard, because we're going to do this, because we're going to do that, that it's going to make money. And my point to you is that a lot of times, real estate, if it was that simple, that you buy a property that you think is cheap, and you think you're going to fix it up, and you think you're going to sell it for higher, and you just make money, guess what? Everybody could do a flip, and then everybody could make money. The problem with real estate is it's not quite that simple, right? Because the devil is always in the details. My reason for sharing those 3 stories was, part of it, I was laughing at myself about the Barrington property. Second part of it, I kind of don't like it that this person is buying property number 2. The third one was Mr. Billman, which I'm extremely happy that even though on the first deal he lost $4,000 or $5,000, but he lived another day to fight another battle. The exciting part of it is that today he has a nice, stable cash flow portfolio. So if anything, that was probably one of the best lessons that he learned on that property number 1, that rather than just going ahead and still doing it, he actually followed the advice and he said, no, I'm going to back off. I'm not going to do this property, even though I may lose 4,000 or 5,000 bucks. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Wish you a safe weekend. The fall is in the air. So if you're doing something fun, I don't know is it Halloween this weekend? It's Halloween this weekend, right? I think it's like a Monday. Oh, is it Monday? Okay. So happy Halloween for everybody that celebrates. If you don't, then happy partying or whatever you like to do on the weekend. And we will talk to you back on Monday at 5:30. Thanks a bunch. This is Andrew, and please invite your friends and family. That's how we all get to grow. That's how hopefully you enjoy some of these stories that I try to tell and entertain you for half an hour on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thanks a bunch, everybody.